Over 2,000 years ago, in the region where modern countries and borders exist today, there were once great empires whose names alone struck fear into people far and wide. On this land stood a small yet mysterious, sacred, and historically significant city, Jerusalem. For centuries, this city stood at the crossroads of power, religion, hope, and history. And then a moment came when the fate of this city changed forever, a moment that would remain etched in human memory for millennia. To begin this story, we must go back to a time before Jerusalem was under siege, before the Babylonian army stood at the city gates, and when the streets of Jerusalem were free from fear, hunger, and destruction. We must go back to when empires rose and fell, alliances were made and broken, and politics shifted daily. The kingdom of Judah was small but religiously powerful. Its identity was tied to belief in one God, its national spirit connected to the sacred temple, and its people were deeply rooted in their history. Yet politically, this kingdom was always at the mercy of more powerful neighbors, sometimes Egypt, sometimes Assyria, and then came the time when Babylon became the symbol of power. The rise of Babylon was like a storm sweeping away every weaker state in its path. Nebuchadnezzar II was the center of this storm. He was a king of conquest, but his anger was greatest toward those nations that pledged loyalty only to betray him. And this was exactly what happened with Judah. The story here is not just about politics, but about poor decisions, weak leadership, and internal divisions. As Assyria weakened, Judah briefly tasted freedom, but it was an illusion. Suddenly, the scene changed. Babylon began to dominate the entire region. One by one, it subjugated cities and kingdoms, and Jerusalem stood directly in its path. Zedekiah had been made king by Babylon. History records clearly that he was a ruler appointed by Babylon. But a few years later, he secretly formed ties with Egypt, prepared for rebellion, and ignored Babylonian tribute. For Nebuchadnezzar, this was not just rebellion, it was betrayal. In his eyes, when a king breaks loyalty, the entire nation pays the price. When the Babylonian army advanced toward Jerusalem, they came not only to fight, but to punish. This was not merely a political action, it was a warning. Any nation that stands against Babylon will meet the same fate. The people of Jerusalem had been hearing rumors for weeks. Anxiety grew among the population. Mothers held their children tightly. Elders looked to the sky, saying that perhaps this was the moment predicted by some of the prophets. But the walls of Jerusalem were strong, defensive fortifications were high, and the people remained steadfast in their faith. The siege began. The Babylonian army surrounded the city like an ocean encircling an island. They cut off the city from all sides. No food could come in, and no one could leave. Jerusalem became a prison. A siege does not escalate immediately like a storm. It grows slowly, relentlessly. At first, the people used their stored grain. Soldiers patrolled the walls, but as months passed, conditions inside Jerusalem began to deteriorate. Food supplies dwindled. With each passing day, the markets became quieter. Babylon advanced steadily. They focused on every weak point, gradually tightening their grip. Inside the city, people's morale began to collapse. Finally, the day came when Babylon acted decisively. A section of the wall, weakened by constant attacks and underground tunnels, gave way. The enemy entered the city. Street to street and gate to gate fighting erupted. Resistance, though fierce, was short-lived. Babylon was a mighty empire, and Jerusalem a small nation. Zedekiah attempted to flee, but he was captured. What followed remains one of history's most bitter episodes. Fires were set throughout the city. Homes were destroyed, walls demolished. The Temple of Solomon, a symbol of the nation for centuries, was reduced to ashes. The people of Jerusalem were taken captive. Thousands were enslaved. children were carried to Babylon. This event became known in history as the Babylonian exile or Babylonian captivity. But the story does not end there. Those taken to Babylon did not give in to despair. They preserved their language, their faith, and their writings. It was during this time that many important texts were written and beliefs were strengthened. Decades later, when the Persian Empire defeated Babylon, the exiles were allowed to return. The city was rebuilt and the temple was restored. The nation proved that walls may fall and cities may be destroyed, but human determination, faith, and identity can endure. The siege of Jerusalem was not merely a story of destruction, it was a trial of a civilization, and from this trial arose a new beginning. This story still teaches us today that power is fleeting, but hope remains. Empires may fall, city walls may crumble, yet human courage and identity can survive even the fiercest storms.